So our next presentation is from the city of Mississauga. And if you don't know Mississauga, they are a city just to the west of Toronto. I think the population is reaching nearly 1 million now. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but every time I look at it, it's just growing leaps and bounds. Very, very, very tall city. Not sure what the latest big building is, but they're well over 50 stories for a suburban type of urban development. Very interesting. And I mean, I'm an urban planner by background, and I just love seeing the city form change over time. So with that, we're going to talk about, or the city of Mississauga is going to talk about Inline and the Inline advantage for smarter data and better decisions. Inline is one of our products that is part of the studio platform, but it's like, it sometimes gets a, not as much attention as say, workflow or reporting or web, but it is a very powerful technology that integrates directly with roads and highways. There's advanced reporting, exporting capability, Inline, a lot of transparency and efficiency and service delivery functionality. So Joel Meyer brings deep expertise in municipal GIS, emergency, and cross-department collaboration. Simon adds nearly 3 decades of IT and asset management leadership, guiding enterprise platform and governance. I've known Simon indirectly for many years. And Joel, I don't know you as well, but good to see you here. Simon, always good to see you. Thank you for presenting today. And with that, I will let you take over and present your wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Peter. I think we're about 800,000 population right now, so we're getting close to 1 million. All right, so today we're going to talk about how the city of Mississauga is using our linear reference system in connection with Vertigis's Inline. So as Peter said, my name is Joel Meyer. I'm an analyst with the city. I've been doing more of the back-end work to get things up and running, along with some development services from Vertigis. And with me is my manager, Simon Langham. Like he said, over 30 years with the city, so he's got quite the wealth of experience to draw from. I just surpassed 4 years here now with the city, but I have had another 10 working in regional government. I worked at single tier, upper tier, and lower tier municipalities, so kind of been all over the place. COGS grad, Masters of Science in Geography from University of Waterloo. So the theoretical knowledge is not lost on me, and I'll let Simon introduce himself.
Hi, Simon Langham with the city of Mississauga. Only 28 years, not 30. Still got a few years to go yet. Currently the manager of the asset management and GIS platform services for the last 2 years. Before that, I was sort of a GIS and Infor project manager for 15 years and at various technical specialist positions for 11 years before that. I like to say that when I started, Y2K was on the number 1 and 2 on our work priority list. Just the past couple of years, I've been focusing on asset management planning and governance, gone through some certification programs with IPWEA. Do have a BA certificate from Sheridan. I went to, not COGS, Fleming, the other option back in the day for my GIS certification, coming off a BA Geography from Concordia University in Montreal. All right, so we're here to talk about just a brief introduction. We're working with road right-of-way permits in Mississauga. We have a variety of different permits that we use in the road right-of-way. Film, access modification on curb cuts, complex construction. Sort of a group for when we've got a group number of projects in one location, we group them together into a single permit type to manage that a little bit easier. Excess load, any sort of big vehicles coming through. I think the biggest one we had was when the coming through here is the Molson brewery just off of 401 and 427. They brought those new big vats in through, so we had them come through the city on that. PUCC coordination permits, that's our Public Utilities Coordinating Committee. So sort of our pre-road permits. The various utilities talk with the city and the region on the work that's happening in our area to make sure they can coordinate a little bit better. And then we have road occupancy permits, are the ROPs. The ROPs are our main focus here. We manage construction and utility work on public roads to ensure proper authorization and coordination. Different types of ROPs that we have. service connections for utilities and cable, temporary road occupancy permits such as cranes and storage, special events, everything from a parade to a block party, municipal consent for utilities. That's getting big right now with all the 5G and the fiber going in across our city. We have a special set of permits for our light rail that's going up here in Ontario, as well as our transitway. We've got engineering investigations as well as one for city work, which we would call capital works. And all of these are, next please, yeah, thanks. All those permit types are tracked in our Infor public sector installation. And we allow for a couple different permit types through online permit portals. Film has their own permit, has their own front-end portal, goes back into Infor, and as well Dynamic Portal, which is the Infor product. We are looking to replace it with Rhythm for Civics next year to bring it into, well, the 21st century. This includes the applicant enters all the details of the permit, including location, using a series of custom detail pages. The approval process for our permits, we're using the Infor CDR use permits module. We have a number of processes to check for conflicts between the various business units, depending on the impact and whether or not there needs to be traffic stoppage. There's going to be any bus shelters moved. We have to move any poles. We have to close the road, the on and off the road, a large number of different items that are on there. We have multiple milestones to track progression of permits, the progression of the permits for approvals and, well, the permits in progress. And on the final step, we use DocuSign to sign off on the permits sent out to the applicant to return before we issue. This is a screenshot of what we're using in Dynamic Portal, just focused on the portion of the page that we are using for people to capture their location. So this is something we programmed ourselves in-house. It pulls the building addresses from Infor as well as our intersection list, and from the intersection and for the roadway. For the intersection of the roadway, you're selecting that initial street name, and then we're automatically filling in any intersection, any street that intersects with that first initial one will be just one column for intersection. For roadway, you're picking your from and to. I should say that roadway is the LRS asset in Infor and allows us to capture by measurement the entire length of a permit from start to finish, as opposed to having to go from intersection to intersection. So you can add multiple different items in here. In this case, we've got one, and down below you can see in the grid. And then we have, you can add as many items in as you want. Well, we say 10 per permit. This is just a shot of, this is a screenshot of the Infor use permit module. And at the bottom, you can just see the two locations and what they look like in Infor, just for people to look at. You know, the print looked good when we looked at it otherwise, but it's a little squinty here. So the challenges in our traditional permit management is that previous to the system that we set up, there was a lot of manual tracking. We had spreadsheets and spreadsheets to track spreadsheets to keep track of all the various places that the permits were happening, and to check for conflicts between existing permits and future applications. It required a lot of manual copying and pasting or manual typing, and led to occasional errors just based on typos and things being missed. We didn't have an easy way to display all these permits, so again, people were as dependent on spreadsheets with street names and written descriptions of the from locations. So anyone who was new to the city would have a difficult time knowing that something may interact, whereas it becomes a lot easier to see. And again, with that real-time visibility, the nice thing with using Inline, it allows us to update it. We're using some processes from FME to push out updates twice a day, so it allows a fairly straightforward, and that as an agreed to timeline with all of the different stakeholders we have, so they get near real-time display of permits on the permits and work orders on a map interface. And as well, you know, the nice thing about the LRS is that the dynamic segmentation like I talked about before, is it allows us to have a single length to represent a road, whereas in a traditional segment line model, you may need to put in multiple assets for each different segment that that particular permit takes place. So it allows us to be a lot more flexible by having by using the LRS.
All right. So LRSs are a bit of a new concept in GIS, at least in Canada. I know a lot of the departments of transportation in the States are quite familiar with them. I saw a presentation that one other municipality within Canada was starting to use them as well. So for those unfamiliar with an LRS, we'll just do a quick review. So an LRS, like Simon was saying, instead of storing discrete geometries for each road section, the entire roadway has its geometry and then gets subdivided by a length. So you'd have a 0 meter or a 2 meter or whatever it happens to be. So if you look at the example on the screen, so the first event would happen at maybe a quarter of a kilometer along that route. What this allows us to do is to maintain a singular road network. So instead of having one road network for our public works, having another road network for our computer-aided dispatch system for our emergency services, we can have one single one and we can just segment it as we need it. This is helpful, obviously, because we're no longer having to make changes in multiple. I think before this, we had 6 or 7 different road networks. So if a road change needed to happen, it had to happen across all of those. So it makes it a little bit easier for us on the maintenance side for being able to verify the different assets on the same roadway. It also allows us to make it easier to overlay those. So the events stay with the roadway. So as those changes happen, the events don't move off the road. They stay right where they're supposed to be based on rules that we set up. So if they're supposed to be in the same location, they don't move. If they're supposed to be in the same measure, they stay in the same measure. So we have been using it. We are still a little bit on the start of our journey. So we're starting right now with our permits and constructions to try and alleviate some of those conflicts. That's Simon was talking about in the last slide. So within ArcGIS, we're using the Roads and Highways module to do this. So this is it's the location referencing toolbox within ArcGIS. So there's the linear referencing and location referencing. The location referencing comes originally from pipeline management, I believe, but it works great for roads in our situation. We are coming up to a challenge where a lot of the existing users of roads and highways within ESRI are state DOTs, so their roads are a lot straighter and a lot longer than what we have in the same Mississauga. We have a lot of smaller, interconnected, and a lot of weird loops and geometries within our roadways. So having roads and highways be flexible enough to do both has been great. As Simon said, we use Infor to input all of our permits. We also use it for most of our asset management. So we are trying to pull a lot of data back and forth between GIS and Infor. So FME does this job for us quite well. I don't think we've had too many hiccups with the FME side of it, which is nice. Again, dynamic segmentation, synchronization. So having those FME jobs to synchronize everything kind of takes out that additional aspect of human error. And then enhanced visualization and decision making is what I'll get into the next few slides. But being able to show the different routes and the different events. An event is basically anything on a route. So it could be our work permits in this situation. So being able to display the different events has been paramount. And we're working towards being able to have multiple routes. So if we have a construction event that spans between a multi-use trail and a road and goes on both, that would have been somewhat challenging to display before, but now we're getting a little more into it. So to kind of talk a little bit more about Vertigus Inline product, I've put together, well, Vertigus has put together their overview video. So we'll just give that a quick go through.
So there is a voiceover on this video. We can't hear it, but I guess you can visualize what it looks like.
Sorry, I didn't realize you couldn't hear it. If you download the slideshow after the fact, the audio is there, or it is on Vertigis's website as well. It's a good quick overview. I'm sure Peter's happy for us to get some of the branding in there too. So I'm not brave enough to do a live demo of our inline usage. So I again have a little bit of a pre-recorded video without a voiceover this time, so I know I have to speak over it. So like I said, our inline development is still in the development phase. But what we've got is our inline module within the Vertigis Studio web viewer, which has been very helpful because all of our users are used to, well, they're used to GeoCortex, and the new Studio Web is so similar or can be made similar. So our users aren't wondering where things are, wondering how to do things, and they can still do all the functions that they had in those older GeoCortex sites or without issue or without having to look around for it. You know, they're familiar with the I want to menus and all that. So by having that extra inline module based right in there, it's made it a little bit easier to integrate with our existing use cases. So if you look down here, you can see the LRS measure moves dynamically with your mouse as you go through. So you can either move it on the screen above or the one below. And the nice thing for us is that we can have as many different layers within Inline as we wanted. We can set up tooltips, we can set up features, so you can click right on it. We have our addresses in there. So if we want to see what addresses are being affected by which road permits, we can move our slider along, we can scroll up, scroll down and see the different ones and at what measures. We've set up the tooltips a little simply just to kind of show the type of application. And we have the permit numbers as the labels on there. Like I said, we have all the usual Studio Web tools, the legends, the layers, the draw, the measure, so they can draw right on the map as they're used to. We have the printing option. I really like the adding points of interest, so you can kind of have this layer that sits there that you can draw right on, and you can either draw measures to have a linear point on there, or you can have just a singular point, so you can interact directly with either the map to do it, or you can interact with the Studio Inline. Peter was talking a little bit about how some of the additional options, so you can export portions of it, you can view the data table, so all these options are right there within the Inline module, as opposed to having to search around for it or even having to build it out more. So it's kind of nice to have those available to everybody if we want to. And there are additional features on each of the layers, so you can either filter the layer on the map, you can apply for additional filters by right-clicking on some of the features within the Inline module, and having charting and everything right there has been super nice. The elevation profile comes right off of the service layer, so we didn't even have to create that. That's kind of built right in, and again, just a nice visual for people to see, and just kind of going through and showing, you know, same tools everyone's used to, built right on top of it too. So that makes it, again, super useful in our opinion to be able to integrate it with our existing workflows.
Right, so we're using a couple of different tools to make this work for us. We're using Infor as our base system. Fortunately, it does have an LRS asset called Roadways within it. We've been using it for probably about 18 years now, I should say. So staff are used to using that, which is beneficial. We have FME using a couple of queries to pull the information out of Infor, through it, and we put it into the Enterprise Geo database, into the roads and highways routes as either as a route or as an event. and then ultimately displaying through Vertigis Inline as our end tool. So yeah, we've got a number of different assets that we have linked in, or we will be linking in, such as our sidewalks or our pedestrian transportation network. We're only responsible for storm, but we're not quite sure with the latest provincial legislation. We're not sure what we're actually responsible for now. So I think we're working on that, as well as our different transit lines, such as our LRT. Excuse me. Really, and it just, with everything working together, and being able to now display it easily on a web map is bringing things, is causing a lot more efficiency, and everyone's finding it a lot easier to work with everything. Yeah, expansion plan. So as Joel said, we're just really starting our journey with Inline, and even with roads and highways. So we want to extend Inline and the LRS to include, to associate more to it. We're looking at roads and highways to sort of be the one thing that ties almost everything that the city has together. So we are looking to tie together our road network with our storm sewer network, our pedestrian transportation network. In fact, we're looking at just making that a transportation network. Just some things, roads, cars can go on, and just different items have different methods of transport, what's allowed on them, and speed limits for that. We will be creating a public permit viewer for residents so that they can see what's available, what work is going on my street, or why are these big yellow trucks outside. Training and adoption. We've been working with the stakeholders within our transportation and works group, probably for about 2 months now, I think. Whenever we think we've got a final design in place, they always need just 1 or 2 extra tweaks, which I guess is the normal way things go for just about everybody who's working with the end clients. It's never done. And we're to the famous question slide.
Excellent. I do have a question. I love the inline presentation that you've done, Joel and Simon. Excellent presentation. I do have a question about your integration. It seems like a lot of heavy integration. Infor and roads and highways, those are not light tools, I don't think. Those are pretty massive, enterprise systems. How did you find the integration to? I know the roads and highways pretty well. It's out of the box, or that's what my understanding is. It probably is not exactly like that, but how did you find the integration to roads and highways and Infor?
It's much roads and highways is, well, roadways and Infor has a temporal component. It is much more forward in roads and highways. So it was our biggest struggle. The length and the measurements, that was fairly straightforward. It was just integrating the when and how roads and highways does changes in history. So everything is a new event, and they stack on top of one another. And we were trying to change things as opposed to add things. And we really had to get our mind, we had to sort of really it was a different way of thinking. And I think we're finally getting our head wrapped around it now. But Joel, it was probably about a month and a half of trying to figure out why this isn't working.
Yeah, it's very much a lot of time spent trying to do things the way we used to do them, as opposed to working with the tools that we have. And, we have some very talented SQL developers that have been helpful on our team, that have helped along the way for sure.
And I guess FME was key. I hear it all the time. FME. Everyone seems to have FME. So did you use any kind of integration between Vertigis Studio and FME, or was it kind of just FME with roads and highways and Infor?
Currently, it's just sort of between FME's the glue that ties together Infor and roads and highways. Not really directly with Inline. Just we've been looking at that more as a viewing, and not yet, but a potentially and we'll be looking at an editing tool for some of our users in the future. But it's really just been more the front end rather than sort of the back end piece to it.
Excellent. Paul, did we have any other questions that you can share with the team here?
One just came in as you said that. It was more of a comment, it looks like. So Inline basically gives you a cross-sectional view of linear data instead of just having different data layers sitting on top of one another or in a traditional map view. Yeah, gives you that cross-section view. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, and it's a really easy way. It's a sort of very straightforward way, as Joel said, to present a lot of this data, and that you can filter what people see in that layer, so not everyone needs to see the same thing.
So you've got it separated by different departments.
Yeah.
Or different teams. Different teams see different things.
More like different business units. Some people need to see certain types of permits. Some people don't. Some people don't need to see permits at all. So we don't necessarily need, actually traffic counts, AADTs, really important to a couple groups, and other people and other business units couldn't care less. So it's good to be able to turn those attributes on or off depending on who needs to see it.
Can you spend a quick moment? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just as we move forward with this and trying to integrate more assets to it, being able to have that conflict or being able to associate assets to roadways more directly. So when a new permit comes in, knowing that these street poles are also on this roadway, if they are on the project plan for replacement, then maybe we can better schedule our works.
Excellent. So my question was basically on you mentioned, people seeing, what is this track and turn building kind of thing, and that's a public kind of facing thing, and that's very interesting, a very interesting use case. Can you go into that just a little bit, like how that is going to work? I think that's something coming forward in the next year, you mentioned maybe, or what is the status? And can maybe a little bit of background about that, how, Inline might help with that workflow?
Yeah. Well, currently we do have a sort of a capital, a City of Mississauga construction map that we have it facing out to the public. And it's sort of a mixture of work orders being automatically populated from various systems, but a lot of it is just the staff who are responsible for it, drawing the line on a map and associating the construction equipment to it. What we want to do is have those lines generated and displayed in Inline with the contact information, the from to construction dates, or whatever information the various business units wants to put up there. Sometimes I want to put a date, sometimes I want to put a quarter or a season, depending on the size of the construction project. The big goal is to remove as much manual copying as we can and allow the systems to display information from other systems. And with Inline, I think is that we can look at, and I think we've got to work with a couple businesses. We've got to talk to the units, but my thought is I like the time slider portion of it. So here's what's happening now. Here's what's going to be happening in 2 weeks. If we could show that difference picture out to the public, it would be, I think it would be beneficial. I'm sure some people who are in public works are recoiling in horror when I say things like that, but I'm always like to share more information as what we can. So it's going to be a mixture of the technology and a mixture of change management, and just working with the various business units to get permission on what level of information we can share.
Amazing, love it. My first job out of GIS school was actually working at a metropolitan planning organization doing linear referencing and dynamic segmentation with ArcInfo, and yeah, it was amazing. I loved it, and I just love seeing the use of linear referencing by your team and growing use across Ontario and Canada. It is definitely something that's up and coming, and wonderful presentation. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you very much.